Do you still struggle to relax because you can't stop thinking about work? Well, in this video, I'm going to share the next step tactics to relax your mind and stop thinking about work when you don't want to. The inability to stop turning work over in our minds is probably the most common thing people talk to me about. It's what brought me to this work, because I used to do it like a champion. Now, I've already covered some of the practical things that you can do in a previous video, and if you haven't seen it, I'll give you a link to it at the end. They included listening to your thoughts instead of ignoring them, getting whatever's going on in your head out of your head and down onto paper, putting your thoughts into perspective, and being present to what you need to deal with in the moment. But today is about those next steps. Next step tactics for cultivating a peaceful mind outside of work. Danny was a project manager that I worked with. I have changed her name for the purposes of this video. Danny was working on a high-pressure data center transformation project for a major financial services institute. And she reached out to me because she kept waking up at night thinking about work, thinking about things that she had to do, thinking about emails that she hadn't replied to yet, thinking about risk. Now, she'd heard that this work was a speciality of mine, and that's why she reached out. She was tired. She was getting worn out. Worst of all, she was getting unhappy. In fact, she was in tears when we first talked because she was desperately worried that she was going to have to make a choice between a successful career and being happy. And I think it's a tragedy when it seems that way. I know that you don't have to choose. I know that you can have both. I knew she could. So we did the practical things, the things that we were just talking about, and that did a lot for her. I mean, seriously, a lot. But she wasn't entirely clear of turning things around in her head. And to be clear, I don't think the goal is necessary to never turn work around in your head, just for it not to be excessive, just for it not to be something you have no control over, just not for it to be something that makes you unhappy. And that made her ready for this. Now, Einstein once said that you cannot solve a problem with the same level of thinking that you use to create it. I'll take that one further and say you can't resolve overthinking about work with more thinking. Like the remedy to overthinking is overthinking. No. Apart from anything else, your anxieties are not open to be persuaded by rational thinking. So to get out of the same level of thinking that you're getting anxious with, you need to access a higher intelligence. Now, I realize that might seem abstract, woolly, mystical even. Well, treat this as metaphorical rather than literal if you must. But what I'm pointing at is a capacity for wordless knowing that we all have. A knowing beyond our rational, language-oriented thinking, our internal conversation, if you like. And that's what I wanted Danny to access at this stage. Now, there's something I wanted her to see, something I want you to see, and that is that we all have access to a deep, wordless inner wisdom. Something beyond this verbal chatter that we turn over. A source of great personal clarity. When we create the conditions to access it, we get remarkably clear, new thinking about things that we may have been struggling with or problems that we'd been struggling to solve. Some people call that having an insight. And these insights can be like a major light bulb moment, literally transformational. And you can think of creating those conditions as being like looking into nothingness. Again, take that metaphorically rather than literally if you must. The problem is that this noise in our minds cuts us off from this access, and you can't cut that noise out by having more of it. You can't cut it out by simply commanding yourself to. You can't cut it out by rationally persuading it to go away. So what I had Danny do was enter an altered state. I had her relax. I had her breathe mindfully and slowly, putting her attention on every breath and mindfully experiencing the energy of each breath radiating outwards and filling her body from the top of her head to the tips of her toes and the ends of her fingers. Now, again, I'm being metaphorical, but by having people engage with that kind of internal see, hear, feel experience, the imagination of that and the felt experience that comes with it, it bypasses all that chatter. It quiets the mind. It's the metaphorical equivalent of taking that shaken up snow globe and putting it down to let it settle. Now, as I expected, I saw the muscles around her forehead and around her eyes relax and soften. Her shoulders relax, her arms relax. I saw her eyes defocus slightly, as you do when you stare blankly into empty space, or into a candle flame, or by listening to silence. Another way you can do this, by the way, is to imagine that all the sensory input that you get through your ears and your eyes and your body aren't coming in up here, but are actually being seen, heard, and felt in a sphere in the middle of your body. Again, it's engaging your imagination in a metaphor, but with it comes a felt experience. And with that, we just sat together in stillness and silence. That's when we can look into that nothingness. That's when we can access that wordless inner knowing, that higher intelligence that's the level above the level of thinking that created our problem. By the way, if this has been of value, please do click that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notifications bell, because I'm going to be sharing even more ideas that build on this. So we sat and we waited a while, because if there's one thing that's true about this is you can't be in a hurry with it. You can't hurry the process. And then I saw a shift in Danny's face, a smile that spread right across her face. Now I knew something had happened. It was obvious. I knew that she'd had one of these insights. She told me that she'd suddenly realized that there was something that she'd been resisting, avoiding. She'd been avoiding it because she was slightly afraid of it, and she basically tried to bury it to avoid it. But you know what? It wasn't being buried. You know, it's like part of her unconscious intelligence knew that she couldn't. And it was basically, how does she broach telling an uncomfortable truth to somebody that really matters? Now, I'm always amazed by people's capacity for unraveling their own thinking, for having the clear new thought that they need to have when they need to have it, all by themselves. And it made me think of one of my favourite coaching books, Time to Think by Nancy Kline. You might want to read it. Now, Danny does this regularly now, just like I do. And she, like I, find it incredibly renewing and clarifying. Now, I've already mentioned that these are next step tactics. If you didn't see that video with the practical steps, you can watch it here. This is Steve, and I wish you health and happiness.